why don't you get your wife to make something else? He said, I'm not married. I make my own sandwiches. And how many of us do this? With either the relationships we form, the jobs that we do, the business that we run in, okay, the foods that we eat, the exercises, how we think about our life, our stress, the level of happiness that we have, how we learn. How about the subject of self-esteem? It's generally a biggie. How well we actually consider ourselves. For example, you know, I've had many clients who come in, and that one of the big issues, the reason that they're clients, is because they have a little program that they have to be sick, because it's only through being sick do they get people to pay attention to them. Uh-oh. So what happens when they get well? No, in their mind, they perceive it as not getting any attention. And as a byproduct, the first thing they have to do is get sick again. Huh. Sound like an interest. Now, did it work? As a young child, when they got sick, people would take attention, or give them attention. But when they're this big, it may not necessarily produce the most desired result. And by the way, if you're telling your brain constantly that you're sick, do you realize that your body will respond quite happily to that? It becomes an embedded hypnotic command. And so the unconscious part of your mind will always do what it's asked. So I'm going to ask you, would you like a greater sense of independence and a sense of confidence? Okay. And a greater sense of connectedness too. This is, for some people, that really is what the whole subject is about. It's like a type of personal development type exercise. Would you like to become a Zen monk? In other words, one with... I actually saw a newspaper reporter having a conversation with the Dalai Lama, and he was the reporter was trying to tell the Dalai Lama a Dalai Lama joke. It didn't quite work. And he was saying, right, and said, well, it's about you going up to a hamburger store and ordering, one with everything. And the Dalai Lama's going, huh? I do like that. That's good. Okay. How about a sense of having more time? Do you realize that the actual process of time is measured neurologically? It's not measured like we think of it in a sense of seconds, but actually as to whether how much time we have invariably is measured by our perception of it. Ever notice that when you're really enjoying yourself, the time seems to fly? And when you're really having a hard time, it seems to go on forever? That has nothing to do with you getting out and changing all of the clocks in the world. Okay? It has to do with your perceptional position, how you see the world. Okay? How about more money? Oh, okay, that's a good one. One of the big things on the subject of money is that what we do know when we model people who have lots of money is that money is actually very high in their values. And you'd be amazed, a lot of people go, yes, I want money. But when you actually start to talk to them about the subject of money, and we ask them what's important in their life, you'll realize that money actually is very low on the list. Because, well, I've got to buy this. Well, buying this is actually more important than money. Or I've got to do this. Or this relationship is more important. Or spending time on this particular subject is incredibly much more important than money. And then what you find is that it's so far down the list that they actually do not spend the mental energy or focus on the subject to reach or to achieve their objective. That right? Yeah. And so what would happen if you had the ability to shift it up into the hierarchy? That's a nifty one. I like those ones. How about the ability to acquire new skills with ease? We do some terrible things in one of our courses. We actually have an 18-month curriculum of hypnosis that the students have a day to demonstrate competency in. Now, talk about accelerated learning. Okay. And it's done on, people come in and they go, you can't do this. I go, good. And we go through the steps, do the things, and then by the end of the day, they're turning people into chickens. And it's just, we'd stop them, but we need the eggs. Okay. Anybody had a memory, an emotional memory, that even the moment that they think about it, something just happens inside them and they just either well up or cry, or they get angry or frustrated, guilt, grief? Any of these? Oh, we might have some fun with, and we'll show you a method by which to get rid of those sorts of things. Okay, which is a pretty powerful technique. You have to understand that we can see something from history and have a thought and it means nothing. But the thing that turns it into movement or power is a simple word called emotion. It's where our brain and our body become linked, and that there's a chemical exchange that actually occurs in the body that drives us into action. So every time we have an emotion, we can change physiology. What happened if you were to be angry on an ongoing basis, year after year after year? What would it do to your body?
Some major health problems.
Yeah.
And everyone around you as well. And everyone around you.
And everyone around you, yes. Okay. What we do know from sort of all sorts of field studies is that if you're afraid or angry, your propensity for cardiovascular disease and cancer and obesity, okay, is significantly higher than if you don't. Now, please understand, how you handle these emotions is normally put in place when you're really, really young. So, again, how about our healthy relationship? How many people have arguments with others? And it may not be direct arguments. I don't argue with them. Yes. I just ignore them. I just choose not to talk to them. Or, you know, I don't argue with them, but I just see red every time they come into the room. We'll do something this evening to actually show you a method by which to handle that. And it's a very, like often this could be with parents. The number of individuals who, the parents may be dead and long gone, and yet the individuals are still having issues with the parents. They may have moved out of home years ago, and yet all they have to do is hear their name called, a particular... How many of you have got this? Do you ever? How many of you have got the scenario where someone can just call or use your name in a particular way and you know that you're in trouble? Okay? All parents have that uncanny ability just to say a child's name and you go, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Got it? So, how about the ability to positively influence others? Good skill? See, for me, I think this is one of the big ones. It's sort of, in many cases, underrated. You know, to be successful, strangely enough, in my concept of success, doesn't mean that it has to be yours, but in mine, is to know that a single individual breathes easier because of your existence. That you have had a positive impact on the individuals that you have relationship with. That just simply by them knowing you and having dealings with you, their life is easier, is absolutely a concept of success for me. Yeah, and yeah, that's one of the big things for me, I think. I mean, possibly one of the most important things that I do. Okay, wealth can be measured in many, many different forms. It can be measured in happiness. It can be measured in health itself. Okay, but it can also be measured in a sense of who do I have around me and the quality of the relationships that I have. Okay, so what would you like on your sandwich?
What's a yummy thing?
Okay, and you see, you've got stuff on your sandwich at the moment, which I'm sure, you know, see, I actually think that parents get a really, really hard time. In all of my experience, even the worst of parents do absolutely brilliant things. Okay, so the vast majority of what they do is absolutely extraordinarily good. You know, how many of you drove here? How many of you have a bank account? How many know how to add up and divide because the parents either got you to school? How many know how to dress yourself? Okay, how many know how to have a shower and do all those sorts of things? So the thing is, the vast majority, even the most, what we might refer to as dysfunctional individual in our society, is still, we have to thank our parents for the vast majority of the thing. So rather than complaining on maybe the 1 or 2% where we say, oh, we're not fitting in, we don't like what's on our sandwich because we learnt how to put the filling on the sandwich because of our parents. Thank the parents, they did a great job. And I think of it more like a baton run, where a parent hands the baton to a child of a series of behaviours. The child's job is then to pick up the baton and continue to run. And as they continue to run, they have to modify the behaviour for the environment that they're in, and then they do the very next thing, which is hand the baton on to the next generation. And clearly, there'll be good bits with the baton, there'll be not so good bits with the baton, and the parents will have done absolutely the best job they could have done within their means. So we're going to complain and give them a hard time, or just go, thanks, you've handed the baton, because without it, we don't exist. So is there something special that you'd like to achieve? Anything? What sort of things? You know, there's stuff that I have in mind, which at the moment my focus is on writing books and doing all that sort of stuff. And so that's a big, to sort of get what I do out to a broader spectrum of people. And so far, so good. We seem to be doing quite well on that. But I'm sure that each of you have your own thing. Now, how successful have you been at getting there? Okay, could we speed things up? Could you speed things up? And what is it, what belief or behaviour would you have to let go of in order to get there faster? How many of you have ever had the experience where you're hanging on to something that's nice and safe and secure, but you want to go over there? You know, and the thing is, you've got to let go of that. But that, in many cases, that's an aspect of your identity, and your identity is made up to a large extent of thoughts, memories, and behaviours. You actually have to put something down in order to pick up the next bit. So, who uses NLP? In the 12 years that I've actually been teaching NLP, we have had a broad spectrum of individuals. And really, I do mean from police to soldiers to Air Force people. That's on one side of the equation, but we've had psychologists and counsellors. We've had... what other sorts of things, Alison? We've accountants, psychotherapist. I did, yeah. Plumbers, mothers. So it's not a yes, coaches, all sorts of a real spectrum of individuals. So there's no one group that it fits for, and so how does it work? It's just really a series of techniques. Would you like to have a look at some of the techniques?